Hi, welcome everyone to today's study call. Last time we just started this new book, Your Invisible Power by Genevieve Behrend, and we went through the foreword. We haven't even really got into the book yet, and we spent most of our time just going over the principles there in the foreword, talking about what Genevieve kind of her goals were in writing this book. And just to um, kind of reiterate a little bit to follow up from last time, what it was that she was saying is that the creative spirit of life is bound to faithfully reproduce in a corresponding reaction what you hold in your mind. And so that's what she's trying to get across here, is that there is this power, there is this substance that is behind all things, that is greater than us, and that if we use it by holding visually in our mind the things that we want to create, then that spirit, that power that flows through us will create that in our life. So with that little bit of a reminder, let's hop right into chapter 1. Order of visualization. The exercise of the visualizing faculty keeps your mind in order and attracts to you the things you need to make life more enjoyable in an orderly way. If you train yourself in practice of deliberately picturing your desire and carefully examining it, you will soon find your thought and desires come and proceed in more orderly procession than ever before. Having reached a state of ordered mentality, you are no longer in a constant state of mental hurry. Hurry is fear and consequently destructive. Now, I really like this idea that she's starting out with, that if you learn these principles, if you learn how to govern your mind and learn how to create what it is that you want out in the world, you start to lose doubt and fear. That a lot of religions out there talk about the idea of faith, and that if you have faith, then you don't have fear. Then you can trust in this either a deity or whatever power that that religion teaches. And part of the reason I'm familiar with Christianity myself, having grown up that way and continue to practice that way. I am familiar with some of the other religions, just kind of on the surface a little bit. And so I can't really speak specifically to a lot of them, but I know that in Christianity that we try to teach this idea that if you have faith in God, that and work with the principles that God teaches, that you're then supposed to be able to have faith and then overcome fear. The problem, I think, that often arises in a lot of religions that teach these ideas is that it's almost taken on this supernatural or magical idea that people think that, you know, these things happen by luck, by some being or entity, like a god or something, saying like, I'm going to bless you, but I'm not going to bless you. And it's kind of um that God is kind of capricious in a way, that they choose who they're going to bless and who they're not. But if you look at at least the Christian religion, and you look at the practices, the principles that a lot of those holy scriptures teach, and you actually follow them, you start to produce the miracles in your life that many of those scriptures record. And so it takes this kind of magical, ethereal kind of idea down into the more scientific, that if you do this, you'll get this. It's the law of cause and effect most of the time, where you figure out the law by which things operate, and then you live according to those laws, and then you'll get the blessings or the results from which that law says that you should. And so it reduces all of this down into things that we can actually comprehend, that we can actually take, apply in our life and do. And it's not something that we're going through life just kind of hoping, wishing, And so I think in a lot of religions, instead of actually having faith, that um, kind of the attitude is more of a wishful thinking kind of a thing instead of actually having faith. Because if you had faith, then you would actually practice and actually do the principles that a lot of these religions teach. And if you did those principles, or you practice those principles, you actually apply them in your life, you'd actually get the results. And then the last sentence, she says, hurry is fear and consequently destructive. Now, I learned this principle from a mentor of mine many years ago, that the idea is that if you're creating the life around you, if you're working with this universal spirit that is behind all things, it is orchestrating things for your best possible good in your life. And so if that statement is true, it's orchestrating your life for you. You don't need to rush. You don't need to hurry, because it's going to create the things in your life when you need them at the very moment that you need them. And so, when you get in your car to go, somewhere, you don't have to hurry and rush to go wherever it is that you're going. You can enjoy the time along the way, that you don't have to worry and strain of, I got to get to the next thing. I got to get to the next thing. I got to get to the next thing. And even in things of like when you're setting a goal and going after something, you don't need to do everything that you can in as short amount of possible to try to obtain that goal. What you want to do is you want to take that goal, break it down into manageable and easy steps that you can do every day to work towards that goal. And then what happens is oftentimes like serendipitous type things, happenstance just starts to show up in your life that actually propels and moves you forward far quicker towards that goal than you would otherwise think. And it's only possible if you take a step back and you do things slowly and incrementally as you can, and not try to worry, strain, and create things out of order and out of their proper time. There's a scripture from the Bible that says there is a times and a seasons for every purpose under heaven. We have the seasons in our year of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And there are certain things that need to happen in each season, as far as like if you were to grow some crops and to like reap that harvest. And it's the same thing in our life, that we plant the seeds of whatever it is that we're trying to create, and we have to water it, we have to let it grow, and then eventually the harvest comes. But oftentimes we want to rush immediately from the planting to the harvest, and it doesn't work. We end up pulling the seeds out of the ground, and then nothing grows, and it doesn't work. And so if you learn to work by and according to the laws that govern this substance that flows through in everything, then you never have to hurry. And she says hurry is fear and consequently destructive. Now, as a goal of mine, this past December, one of the things that I did is that I always found myself when I got in the car that I felt like I had to rush, even if it was, only going like 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. I would do that just to get there just a little bit quicker, to hurry a little bit, to rush through life. And so I made it my goal to take a step back, that when I got in my vehicle, that I would just go the speed limit, that I would leave in plenty of time to go wherever it was that I needed to go on time, so I could just follow the speed limit. And also that if I ever did leave late, I would still follow the speed limit, and just I would get there wherever it was that I was going when I got there. Um, and this was a little bit of a test, and a little bit of something that I wanted to start to incorporate more of this principle in my life, because sometimes when I hurried, um, especially if I was speeding, there was always the fear of, okay, is there a police officer around? Is there something that I need to pay attention to? And it seemed like I was always needing to pay attention to the environment around me out of fear. Now, as I started to do kind of this test to see kind of what would happen, but also just trying to apply this principle more deeply in my life, one of the things that I noticed is that I I stopped fearing. There wasn't fear as I was traveling. I know that, when I first started driving, I grew up in a small town, and so I wasn't used to driving around a lot of other vehicles, and so when I moved, in my adult years to, an area where there was more of a population and I was driving consistently on roads like freeways and different kinds of things where there was a lot of vehicles around, I noticed that my jaw would be clenched and my hands would be clenched on the steering wheel because I was constantly worried about the other people around me and what was going on. And I worked through that quite a bit through over the years to where I stopped, worrying and stressing a little bit about that. But I noticed that the last little bits of what was left from that just dropped away, and that I felt a lot freer as I was driving. I noticed that my mind felt freer to either listen to the music, the podcast, the audiobook, whatever it was that I was listening to, or my mind was just free to kind of daydream or wander. And it actually was a more pleasant trip wherever it was that I was going. And so, what I would recommend is look at your life right now. Are there any areas in your life where you're feeling like you're needing to rush? Where you're needing to strain, where you're needing to get there now. And if you can spot some of those points, because I'm sure that there are, then take a look at how you might step back, how you might rearrange things a little bit better so you're not hurrying, so you're not worrying about what's going to come, and you just have faith that what's going to happen will happen in its proper time and in its proper place. All right. In other words, when your understanding grasps the power to visualize your heart's desire and hold it with your will, it attracts you all things requisite to the fulfillment of that picture by the harmonious vibrations of the law of attraction. You realize that since order is heaven's first law and visualization places things in their natural element, then it must be a heavenly thing to visualize. And so she kind of, in a way, was talking a little bit about what I was going into there, that when you start to visualize, when you start to use the powers of your mind to work with this power that is behind everything, it starts to set up your life and bring order out of the chaos that's often around our lives, because it's the chaos, the unknown, the um little things that we're worried about, whether are they going to happen, are they not, that those things start getting put into place. And once those things start getting put into place, then life becomes um almost effortless, to where you're just going along and doing what needs to be done as that thing presents itself. And so you're not worrying and straining about the future or the past or this or that. Um, and I know for me that as I've applied these principles, there's been more peace, there's been more harmony in my life, that I've been able to um, go along in my life at a much more um, harmonious, as they're using it, type of living. This is this saying and stuff kind of is become cliched out a little bit, but they always say that life is about the journey and not about the destination. Because oftentimes, and you can really see this built into our psychology, that when we reach a goal, there is a momentary high that we feel, but that high actually goes away pretty quickly. So even things like big accomplishments, that say that you were going to college, and that you got a 4-year degree, what they've actually shown through different studies and different kinds of things that they have analyzed people going through these big accomplishments in life. And you would think that this big accomplishment, that once you finished it, there would be just kind of this high that you would be able to kind of ride on for an extended period of time. But what they actually found is that it's actually very fleeting, that once you reach that goal, that ending, and you accomplish whatever it is that you were setting out to do, kind of the reality of life sets in and was like, okay, now I've accomplished this. What's next? And it's the what next thing that kind of takes away a little bit from that high, so to speak, that then, because if you were going through school to gain some kind of degree to then go out into the working force, um, once you got that degree, then the next thing is like, okay, I got these student loans for a lot of people. I got to go out and earn money so that now I can pay for this schooling that I just received, or I got bills to pay, or I got a family that I got to take care of, whatever, the person's responsibilities may be, that I've reached this goal, but now I got to keep moving so that, I can continue to support myself. It's kind of like the idea, I don't know if you may know this, a lot of you may know this or not, but sharks have to constantly be swimming, and if they stop, then they actually die. And a lot of it has to do with the way that their body is structured and how they get oxygen out of the water and different kinds of things. So if they stop, their body stops being able to process a lot of those kinds of things. And we're designed, our psyches and the way that our bodies function in much the same way, that we're designed to be going after goals and reaching those goals. And once we reach a goal, we need to be setting the next goal and going after it. Because what happens if you reach a goal and you don't have anything else in store, what actually happens is your body starts to produce chemicals that start to counteract any of the good feelings that you actually received when you reach that goal. And it starts to bring us down into despair, depression. We start to lose faith and hope. And so we always need to be having something that we're working towards so that our bodies actually function properly and helpfully. And so she's kind of pointing this out here, that if you learn to work with these things, that everything starts to fall in order and you can have those goals that you're going after. And instead of there just being the one high at the end, you can experience highs along the way, that you can experience the joy of going through the journey, the process. I know for me, that was a big thing for me, where I didn't enjoy the process of most things, that I just wanted to get to that end result. But I experienced that same thing. When I experienced the end result, it was fleeting. And then, I would either sink down into depression or a little bit of letdown, or in those rare times where I actually did have something else that I was going after, I could pick myself up and just keep moving on. But what I found is that as I start to enjoy the journey, as I start to slow down and do things in their times and their seasons and work with these laws, that as I'm going along, just before I reach the goal, the next goal shows itself. The next thing that I need to do shows itself. And so I'm always consistent. It's just this never ending journey of working and moving forward. And, you might think that, oh, that's just kind of depressing, or that's kind of heart-wrenching, that you're always just going after something. When do you just stop and kind of enjoy things? And the truth is that the way that we're designed, the way that our bodies work and function, so we weren't designed to actually just sit back and enjoy. Now, we do need times of rest. We do need times of relaxation, but to just like reach a point in our life to where things are done and then we just never have to do anything anymore, that's actually very destructive to our bodies. Now, I think a way that you might be able to look at this and see this actually happening out in real life is that, have you ever seen somebody that was just a very healthy person? They were just moving through life, everything was going their way, and they got to 60, 70 years old, somewhere in that time frame. They retire, and then within a short amount of time, because they're retired and they're not, doing anything. There's not anything that they're going after in life. They soon waste away and die within a short amount of time. It's because our bodies and the way that we are designed, we're meant to be going after things. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that a person retire, but if you do retire, you got to have something else, a hobby or something that you're still going after in life, although maybe the strain and struggle of, a 9 to 5 isn't necessarily there. Or I think an even better option that you might consider doing in your life is finding something that you love to do and making that your work. And so when you reach the age of retirement, that retiring isn't even something that you really want to do because you take so much enjoyment uh, uh, out of doing what it is that you're doing. And then, you never need to retire and you could just continue to do what it is that you love to do. And, maybe when you reach that age, you still continue to do, maybe you scale back a little bit so that, you have a little bit more free time to, pursue some of the other things of life instead of always being engaged in whatever that is. Or you may just love that so much that you just find so much fulfillment out of that. Everyone visualizes, whether they know it or not. Visualizing is the great secret of success. The conscious use of this great power attracts to you greatly multiplied resources, intensifies your wisdom, and enables you to make use of advantages which you formerly failed to recognize. Now, if you're hurrying through life and you're trying to get from one place to the next, you never see all the opportunities that are presenting themselves to you along the way. And God, source, the spirit, or whatever that is behind all things may actually be giving you the very thing that's going to take you to the next level, take you to the next place of where you're going in your life. But because you're going from one place to the next so quickly, you're not taking the time to see what's along the way. You miss the advantages and the wisdom and the resources that she's talking about that you could be experiencing. And so the other thing that I think is important to bring out of what she just said right there is visualization is the great secret of success. So we want to be visualizing what it is that we want because she said everyone visualizes. Whether you're using that visualization capacity of your mind to think of the things that you want, or whether you're using it to worry, to strain, to be in constant state of anxiety, thinking about all the things that went wrong or could go wrong or any of those kinds of things. Instead of focusing our mind on that, on the fear, the worry, the lack, we want to visualize and focus our mind on the things of what we're going after, what we want to create. Because then, as we're going along through life, we'll start to see the breadcrumbs, the things that are leading us to those things. Because our minds are very goal oriented. They're designed to be that way. So if you have a goal in mind, something you're visualizing, your subconscious mind is so powerful, it will start to see things in your environment that may or may not bring you towards that goal that you're trying to reach. But if you're constantly thinking of what you don't want, your subconscious mind is going to be like, oh, we're constantly focusing on this negative thing. That must be what they want. And so I'm going to pick and choose the things out of our environment and bring those to our attention so that then we can go after those things that we don't want. And it seems backwards that that's the way that it would happen, but that's actually is what's happening. And that's what she's bringing out here is that you can be successful if you just learn to visualize and keep in mind the things that you want to go after, because your mind will work with God and all of the universe to create what it is that you want if you focus on the correct things. We now fly through the air, not because anyone has been able to change the laws of nature, but because the inventor of the flying machine learned how to apply nature's laws, and by making orderly use of them, produce the desired result. So far as natural forces are concerned, nothing has changed since the beginning. There were no airplanes in the year one, because those of that generation could not conceive the idea as a practical working possibility. It has not yet been done, was the argument, and it cannot be done. Yet the laws and materials for practical flying machines exist then as now. Now, she's bringing out a point that I think is critical for us when we start to learn and start to use these laws, is that this substance that flows through in everything, that when you visualize, it starts in a process of becoming what it is that you're visualizing, that same spirit holds all knowledge, that at any point in time, the knowledge that will exist and has always existed exists at every point in time. And so what she's saying is that the ability, the laws to create an airplane have always existed. We as mankind just didn't know. And the same thing for all the discoveries that are going to happen in the future. All those things were always there. All the materials to produce those inventions, all the ideas to create the science, the math, the technology to create all the future advances, maybe flying cars, maybe the ability to transport things across vast distances, not just knowledge like we do with the internet, but actual physical things across great distances in, a split second. All those things may be possible to create in the future, but if they are possible, they're possible right now, and they've always been possible because the knowledge and the ways to be able to do them has always existed. And so the important thing to understand right now is that whatever it is that you're trying to create, the ability, the knowledge, the know-how, the how-to of being able to do it exists right now in you, that you just need to learn how to tap in to those things. And what she's saying, Genevieve Behrend right here, is that the way that you go to tap into that is through that process of visualization, that you tap into that wisdom, as she stated earlier, that starts to come forth as you start to visualize and work with this power. Trower tells us that the great lesson he learned from the airplane and wireless telegraphy is the triumph of principle over precedent, and the working of an idea to its logical conclusion in spite of accumulated testimony of all past experience. So what she's quoting of Troward, who is her mentor, is this idea of principle over precedent, that many times we get locked down into tradition. Well, that's just the way that it is. And that we don't look at the possibilities of what could be, or the principles of what could be. I'll share, we're getting down to the end of our study here today, so I just want to share a little story that I I find kind of interesting, and then we'll end it today, and we're just about halfway through chapter 1 here. We'll pick that up to tomorrow for tomorrow's study. But there was a guard that was out in the kind of garden area of the Palace of Versailles. And this guard was supposed to be in this specific place. Now, there wasn't really anything around where this specific place was. There was just kind of like a little bush hedge, flower thing that really was just a greenery. It wasn't anything really beautiful. There wasn't anything for that guard to protect, and it was just this lone guard. It wasn't like there was two guards, that were on one side of the path, and so that would kind of make sense. It's just one guard out in the middle of nowhere, almost in the gardens of the Palace of Versailles. And, one person saw this guard out there and started to question, well, why is this guard there? And as they were inquiring into it, the response that they were getting was, well, that's just the way that it is. There's always been a guard there, and that's just the way that it is. And they thought, well, that's kind of stupid. What is their purpose? Why are they there? And so they started to investigate into it and look into why this guard was placed there. And what they had to do is they had to go back hundreds of years back to, and I may have this incorrect, but I want to say that it was Marie Antoinette, but that she had a prized rose bush that used to grow in that area, and that she placed a guard there, so that that prized rose bush would always be guarded, so no one could, come along and destroy it. And now we go forward, hundreds of years here, and that rose bush is gone, but yet that guard remains. And so oftentimes this is the kind of things that happen in our life, that and in society in general, is that we build these traditions around things that happened in the past, or things that went on. And then as we move forward into the future, those things are no longer needed, or the times have changed and we need something in a different area. But yet, because of tradition, we get so locked into this is the way that it needs to be, that we don't look at how that it could be. So we get so locked into precedent that we don't stand on principle, which in this case, the principle would be, this is a resource. This guard is a resource that we could use, and we're using him in a way that is inefficient. And so let's take that guard and put them somewhere where they would actually be of use. Um, and so think in your life, start to analyze, start to take a look at what are the things that you do in your life, and question them, why do I do this? Or if there was something that was passed on to you as some kind of tradition, why do we do this? What's the purpose here? And what you might find is that there is an actual purpose. There is an actual principle why you do those things, and it will give so much greater power and understanding to that principle, that it will make that thing kind of flower in your life and become beautiful. Or what you might find is that that principle no longer applies, that it doesn't have any more efficacy, and that you could actually save yourself a lot of time and energy by just dispensing with it and moving on to using that power, that energy, for things that would be of more value for you. So with that thought, we'll end off today's study, and we will see you tomorrow morning for tomorrow's study. So until then, bye for now.